great place to start. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of Quantum Ultra. This is what you're going to be using in the back office. Okay, so it's protected right now. It'll be available probably in about 2 weeks, but you can see that there's going to be 3 sides to the left. It isn't pretty yet, but there's the dimer, pad, the MRA, and the RSE. Okay, those are the 3 categories. What I'm going to do is get down below here, and when you start inputting clients, you're going to see your own clients down here at the bottom. Okay, bottom example, just sample, so they'll always be stored there for you also. It makes it real nice to be able to go back in. And whether you're going to talk about the dimer, the PAD, MRA, or RSE, they'll all be here for you. Okay, in this case, I'm going to go bottom example. And what will happen is you'll have these 4 boxes come up. And it actually explains what each does. The dimer, debts, income, mortgages, education, and the R stands for retirement, which I'm going to get into in a second. Calculates how much insurance someone needs, the PAD, or MRA, RSE. We'll do all those trainings later, okay, some other day. For now, I'm going to focus on dimer. So you just click the dimer, and it's off just because the screen settings aren't correct. You come into this. Now, this is what the dimer is going to look like now. So basically, everything's filled out. You see here, Bob's info and then Janet's info. So you're going to do one plan for both of them. See how it just goes down? That's it. Okay, and then we submit. I'm going to show it. So we're going to do one right now to show you how quick it is, and it's just awesome. So let's say now, let's say we come in and Bob has $250,000 of death benefit, and of course he thinks that's too much for a family of 22, right? That's way too much insurance. They have 22 kids, they only need like $20,000 each for the next 30 years. You know, they'll say that, something like that. Per annual premium, let's say he's paying $3,000. Let's say she has the same $250,000. Her premium's $2,000. And debts, let's say they have $35,000 in consumer debts. We only have one space because I'm assuming that the debts are going to be paid off whether he passes away, whether she passes away. And the questions I use, Fuji does it his way, the question I use will be with debts. And I'll say, okay, Bob, let's say you're Bob. Bob, there's $35,000 of consumer debts, and I need to ask you the question, would you rather, if you passed away, would you rather these debts be paid off in full, or would you like your family to continue to have to make those monthly payments? Every time they're going to say that, right? So I just ask them specifically that question, do you want to pay them full or not? And they'll say pay them full. So basically it means the same thing for her too, then she pay those. Now the second one would be income. So let's say he makes $50,000, and let's say we want that protection for 20 years. Let's say she makes $60,000, and we want that protected for 20 years, just in this scenario. And I'd say, okay, what's her name? Janet. All right, Janet. You make $60,000. Is that needed and helpful for the family's budget right now? Oh yes, we spend every penny of it. Okay, great. Well then, if you pass away, we want that income to continue to come into your family between now and the time of normal retirement, let's say 20 years, or do you think they'd be able to make up that $60,000 on their own? And she'll typically say, no, I want that money coming to my family. So you have to ask, you have to lead, you have to get them to commit emotionally that that's what they want to happen. Okay? It's their number, it's not your number. You have to remember this. It's not our number, it's their number. She's telling us how much she makes. She's telling us it's needed for the family. Okay? And if she doesn't get it, I'll say, okay, so right now, if you're living and you stopped earning the $60,000, how would that affect your family? Because maybe she doesn't want to think about dying, right? So you got to bring it back to the living. Because some people won't. Some people just won't want to think about that they're going to die. So instead you say, okay, if you lost your job now, how would that affect your family? You lost that $60,000. Now, don't you think the same type of thing would happen if you passed away? Would it have the same economic hardship on your family? I'll say, so you got to come at it 2 different ways depending on, right? How many people sold insurance in here before? Have you come across people that don't want to talk about dying? No. You got to find a different way to go around it. You do, right? So I always will hit it straight on. What if you died? You want to replace it? Then I find, and I do that because I want to find out what personality does that person have. So you got to find out, are they willing to talk about dying or not? If they're not willing to talk about dying, you're not going to sell anything to them. If you continue to talk about dying, so then you say, okay, let's look at the living side. Okay. A couple other things I do it kiddingly, but I actually do it. I'll say, okay, so let's say we talk about, let's say you get to that $50,000 figure, and you know 50,000 times 20 for Bob, it's going to be $1 million, right? And at that point, then Bob might fight when he sees how much it's going to cost. Well, let's say you're his Bob, and I'll say, okay, Bob, you know, for some reason you don't think this is the correct amount of insurance for your family. And I'll say, but if you died, don't you think they're going to need this $50,000? And I'll say, yes, and then we'll get a little better on. And if he keeps fighting me, I'll just look him straight in the eyes and I'll say, don't you love your family? Well, you're not acting like it. Because you're not willing to provide them the protection that's necessary. And I call these, the dimer, you know what I call the dimer, the D-I-M-E-R? I call it the 5 buckets of love.
5 buckets.
5 buckets of love. So, how much you want to leave them in each one of these buckets to show that you love them? If I get a hardcore case, right? And I actually say that. Then depending on, for Yuri, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say deal with him. I know he does. I'd do this with Yuri. He's sitting by his beautiful wife, and I'd say, well, Yuri, if you pass away, and we don't leave your family enough income, it's gonna be a hardship for him. So it's gonna leave her 2 options. Either one, she's gonna have to go find another job, or maybe she doesn't work out, maybe she has to go find a job, or she's gonna have to go find another man. And I look at her, and then I look at her, and she's pretty, I might look at her a little too long, and I've done this, I swear I've done this, and then, now can you imagine, she's probably going to have to get married, and he doesn't care about that part, because it's like, I'm married to her now, and I don't even like her, I say, they're probably also going to have to go on a honeymoon. And I look at him, and then you know what's going through his mind right now? An X-rated reel of what he doesn't want to happen in his mind. Okay? And I've actually used that one too. And it works very well. So at that point, he's like, okay, I think I need to get the problem done. On the woman's side, then, if she doesn't want to get insurance, let's say, which myself, the woman doesn't want to get insurance, then I use the other side. I say, well, if you pass away, it's going to be a hardship. And she's like, I don't want to get insurance because she's afraid Yuri's going to kill her. So, we got that. Don't go to the Aruba. But at that point, now you have the other side. You have to say, well, if you passed away, if we leave enough money for the family, what will be these issues? They say, if not, then Yuri's probably going to have to go find another woman. And she's like, good, let him have it. And I say, and it's probably going to have to be a younger one. And she doesn't like that either, so usually it gets both parties to move off the time. And literally, I've been sold psychology. You have to figure out who the person is. So we got those numbers in there. Now, you come to the mortgage. Let's say they owe $350,000. And I just say the same question again. I'd say, okay, Yuri, if you pass away, there's a $350,000 mortgage. Do you want this to be paid off when you pass away, or do you want your family to be responsible to make the next 25 years of payments with you gone?
Of course I would pay it off.
And what do they say?
Pay it off.
I'll say pay it off. Okay, you all say pay it off. Okay, great. So you're committed to that bucket of love too. So that's the 3rd bucket. Now the 4th bucket will be for both of them. And you notice there's only one input, right? Because if it's paid off for Yuri, I want it paid off for his wife too. Now for education, same thing. It will be, let's say it costs $100,000 per kid total, and we have 2 kids. And at that point, I'd say, Yuri, if you passed away, would you want the education pre-funded, or do you want your kids and your spouse to have to fund this after you're gone? You want it pre-funded, or do you want them to have to struggle to fund it?
Yeah, I will take care of that.
You want it pre-funded, so I use that term, pre-funded. Okay? Then the next one I use will be retirement. And now we've modified it. So in this case, it says, the way it was written the first time, you guys were confused because it was our fault. It was not written properly, and then someone in the company got into it and reworded it off my wording, so I modified it. R is very important. So we have the dime. R is what I would call the advanced side, but it really isn't advanced. It's what sets us apart, because all of our competitors are going to use the dime method. It's been used for, what, 40 years? Very successfully. But right now, I don't think anything can be as important as making sure we have the R figured out, because how many people have lost money from their retirement accounts over the last 10 years? How many people are going to be able to retire, you think, with enough money? Only about 3% is what it's saying. 97% of us won't. So don't you think we should try to make sure we plan that as part of our mechanism? So R means the additional lump sum money I want to leave my spouse Janet if I die today. Because if I die today, am I going to be funding retirement anymore for her for the next 20 years? And if I die today and no more money gets put into retirement, is she going to have that money? Probably not. So in this category, it's, you notice it says additional funds needed for Janet. So let's say, it's like, how much would you like to give your spouse in that 5th bucket of love in a lump sum if you died to help her fund retirement? So let's say I'd like to give her $250,000 in a lump sum, like a giant extra IRA, recouping some of the losses that we've had and recouping some of the gains we didn't have over the last 10 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that can be arbitrary. It can be whatever number you want. And you ask them both, what amount, if you died today, what amount would Kathleen want? Kathleen, if you died, what amount would want to put you back on par, because I guarantee you're not going to be able to save as much if one of you's gone. Right? And you have to take that term. And let's say then she says, well, he's going to still be working. He makes, or no, let's say you're making more money in this case. So let's say then we need to put $350,000 for you, in case you pass away, to make sure he has enough time, because you're making more in this scenario, right? So it could happen that way. Now, that's all the input you do for both of them. I talked a lot, but how long would that take? A couple minutes, right? And And we now have actually also, I put down, see the description there? What is the amount of funds needed to replace retirement? To include the amount the survivor needs to have in his or her retirement account to replace assets that will not be available due to premature death of the insured. Premature death means no additional funds, so we explained everything now for you. So you can't screw it up as long as you read it. Okay? Now, submit dimer, and bam, look at the top. First two things you're going to see, family protection needed. Okay, it says it right there, for both of them. And then, of course, it's going to detail it out.
Are you having objections to that type of objection?
The objection for what? I'm sorry, talk louder so everyone can hear.
I have objections when they say, oh my God, what's that? That's too much. I don't think they need that much.
Okay, so if you're my client, I'd say, you have $35,000 in consumer debts.
Yes, ma'am.
You want those paid off if you pass away. You want your family to keep paying those monthly payments. Are you making $50,000 a year right now? Does your family need that right now to survive financially? Do you have a $350,000 mortgage? Do you want that paid off? Do you want your family to continue to struggle to make that payment when you're dead and gone? Do you want your education for your family pre-funded? And you want to make sure your wife has an extra $250,000 in a lump sum right now. These are not my numbers, Juan. They're yours. This is a life you've built, you've created. You want to protect your family or not? You love them or not? That's what I'd say. And I've had times when clients have cried in front of me. I've had times when the man who's been bigger than me, who's got the biggest red of his face, I thought he was going to kill me. He'd jump across the desk and kill me. And then he started crying, and he did what he should have, and he bought the insurance. And the next time they came to me, they go, I didn't know if I was going to jump across the desk and try to punch you. I didn't know what I was going to do, but you got me to this point. And I had to get to that point because you weren't making the right decision for your family. That's my job. I can't care about whether you like me, whether you hate me, whether you think I'm an idiot. All I can think about is making sure I'm doing the right thing to make sure you make the right decision for your family. And if you have that confidence that you're doing the right thing with your family or not, you have to make sure you get that process. It's not about you making a guy like you. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with you going through, and that's why you have to make these numbers their numbers. You do not put these numbers in. Because then if I go back and I go, well, Juan, you're saying that's too much, but the life you built right now, you've accumulated $35,000 consumer debt. You're going to pay those off quickly or not? You're probably not. So if you die today, do you want these things paid off or not? That's simple. It comes down to income. Well, you don't have much in savings, so how long could your family survive on the current savings you have? Not long. You think we need to replace that income? Yeah, you already said you need 50 grand. And go through them again, because these aren't my numbers. They're your numbers. It's your life. And I'd also make sure your wife's in front of you. I would not do this alone.
Yeah.
So if you tell me this is too much insurance, I'm going to look right at her and I'm going to say, what do you think? And in front of her, I'll say, well, then you must not love your family. I'll say it. Because our job is not to get people to like us. Our job is to make sure they have the proper insurance.
Yes.
And most people are so far underinsured, either with no insurance or less insurance, that it's going to hurt their family. And I pointed out, I'd say, okay, well, you have $250,000. You think that's enough, Juan? Great. You had a little bit of insurance, but based on the numbers that are on this screen, where do you want Kathleen to apply this $250,000 if you die today? And you stare at it. And you stare at it like you're pissed off at it. Where do you want her to apply the $250,000? Do you want her to pay $250,000 of the $350,000 mortgage off? Then what do they live on? You want her to put $250,000 in the bank and use it to make payments for the next 3 years and then she runs out of money? Where do you want that $250,000 to be applied for?
Should be assertive.
Assert. And let them know you're there for the good of their family. That's you're a consultant. And you can't worry, it's like a doctor telling you things you don't want them to tell you. You have to tell them because you are a doctor of finance at this point. We're not there to make friends. You're also not there to sell him a $250,000 IUL when he needs $1.8 million a term that we might have to sell him. It might cost the same $250 a month for their term as it did for that $250,000 IUL. Okay? It comes down to telling them what you should tell them, not what you think they want to hear or not what you think is easier to sell.
What's about if they cannot afford it?
Who said they
The
can't
whole,
afford
the
it?
whole, the whole amount.
Who said they can't afford it?
Something the guy said.
Okay, are they paying for health insurance, car insurance, home insurance, cell phone insurance? Are they buying lattes every day? Are they buying cigarettes? Are they buying Cokes? Are they buying cable? Do they have all the fun little gadgets on their monthly cell phone bill? Who said they can't afford it? You or them? And if they say can't afford it, guess what? We just listen to them. That's bull. Because everybody can afford to pay for a term insurance. Again, coverage first. Coverage first. Death benefit first. If not, you're going to get sued. And we're going to get sued. And you're not going to protect the family appropriately. Everybody can afford it. They can buy 10-year, 20-year term with it we can convert later. But the main thing is, what if I listen to you and I tell you, you as a female, you need $1.5 million of coverage. Oh my God, I don't need it. Yeah, you do. They're your numbers. It's not my numbers. That's your life. This is a simplification of calculating out how much I'm going to get, how much insurance you need right now. What if I don't force the issue and you buy $100,000 or $200,000 of coverage and you die 2 years from now? Whose fault is that? Probably mine. Probably mine. Because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I didn't cover you. I didn't make sure you knew cover. And term insurance can be cheap. I'm going to show you an example later, just a $1 million policy, because I'll show you the difference between term, return of premium, and IUL and the different premiums, and how then we go about understanding how they actually work together, right? Because that's what it comes down to. Understanding how they work together. That, sure, it might cost $500. You can pay $500 for a $250,000 IUL. We might pay $500 for a $2 million term policy that we might need for our family. We have to look at the most important thing now. What kills every part of a plan more than anything? If I die. If I die, can I fulfill any of the rest of my financial plan? I can't. You got to make that first and foremost. If I die, everything's gone. My ability to earn for my family's gone. My ability to invest for the family, everything dies when I die. So you have to make sure they have the proper insurance. And then we try to find a way to make it affordable. Maybe we help them save money in this category, save money in that category. If it came down to their term insurance costing them $400 per month, and for $2 million, let's just say it's an example, or 1.8, $400 a month, versus them put in the $400, $500, $600 in their 401k, I'm going to say stop the 401k, get the insurance. Because if they put in $600 in their 401k, 20 years down the road, how much money are they going to have? About $150,000 or $200,000. That's not going to make a difference in anything they do. If they buy the insurance and they die sometime over the next 20 years, how much will $2 million mean to their family? Everything. You have to have, right now, you have to get the right mental attitude about your own insurance, because you all have the wrong attitude about insurance. Terrible attitudes about insurance. Terrible. Not just you, everybody does. The United States has it. That's why only 35% of us own our own life insurance. That's why literally 99.99% of us do not have enough life insurance to protect our families if we die.
I think most people don't understand. They're not educated.
Oh, exactly. That's our job. That's our job. And first, we got to educate about the attitude, the mental mindset we have to have as advisors going in. You have to be firm, because what you're doing is something so good for the family. You're not hurting them. You're going to help them by making the right decision. And then, no matter what, let's say they couldn't afford $2 million, then we get them as much as we possibly can up to that amount. But I've found almost every single person can afford it. We just have to help them make this the #1 priority.
Priority.
Right? We all have money. It's how we spend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were already kind of answering the question, but what I'm trying to ask is, in this particular case, let's say they say they can't afford it, then you kind of split between term and.
When did they say they couldn't afford it?
Well, I don't.
You haven't even given a price
She was
yet.
saying, yeah, I understand, but
And she already was saying she can't afford it. I haven't given her a damn price yet.
But how do you say, let's say, term and IUL? What do you come into and say, okay?
There's costs and benefits and negatives and positives to all of them. That's something that we have to teach you. Right? You've heard a lot about it. I'm going to show you in a second that'll help you understand this whole interaction of what you actually do. Right now, and the reason I want to do this one is it's a perfect exercise to tell you, you're going to do what every other consumer out there is doing. You're going to make a bad decision with not enough information. True?
Yeah.
True?
Yeah.
How many good decisions are made with not enough information? Very few, right? Very few. We like the information. You just don't have it. So it's okay. I did it on purpose to show you that's how it works. So with this, you always have to go back and say, these aren't my number. They're your number. Yeah, they're your numbers. And then at that point, if he's what I've done too, which is the best one ever, if the husband's objecting, at that point, I cut him out as if he doesn't even exist in my life anymore. I just stare at the wife. Even if he asks me a question, I answer it, but I look right at her and I answer it. I didn't look at him. until he finally adjusts his attitude and gets back in with the broker. Okay, Kathleen, let's Kathleen. He asked me a question, Kathleen, this is how we do it. He asked me a question, Kathleen, here's how we do it. I say her name over and over again. Juan, who's Juan? I don't even know who Juan dude is. Oh, he's your husband? Well, you know what, we need to get back in the broker. Just looking at me.
That's right.
This is war. And I never lose in war. It is. And either they decide, when I cross the line to send, they either decide to step over and get into my face, and then we get back out and show them exactly what's best for their family. Because for this person, I'm going to ask you one question. Should this person buy $1.8 million of coverage? No matter what, they have to. It's your responsibility. Once you did this calculation, don't even point the finger at them. What if they say they can't afford it? That's bull. Once you do this calculation, it's your responsibility to make sure they get this. Anyone disagree with that? How can you justify selling them less? How would you justify? What's your name? How would you justify selling them less than $1.8 million based on this being their plan and their data? We can't, right? We can't. You can't be babies. You can't accept, I don't have enough money. That's bull. What do you think, Fuji? A little too rough?
No.
Not a little too rough, Rocky?
I normally kill them 4 or 5 times.
Sometimes you have to. Because they have a bad attitude.
Dan, let me make a statement here. Some people will sell at 300,000 or 400,000 index UL rather than sell 1.8 term because they'll make more money there. Wrong thinking.
Well, see, and I'm going to take one step further. What Chris said is sometimes you'll sell a $300,000 IUL versus a $1.8 million term because you might make more money. But and sometimes you won't because let's say, what if a $350,000 IUL was $500 and a $1.8 million term was $500? We're going to actually make about the same on both those policies. Okay? About the same, depending on the company, but in reality, about the same, right, Rocky?
Pretty much.
About the same. What happens is it's easier for a lot of people. Really, if you now dig down to that 7th layer, it's easier for a lot of associates to go in and sell that $350,000 policy because it's a smaller policy. I'm not freaking out that it's 1.8. But more importantly, now I can sell the back end of what? Supplemental retirement income. So because it was easier for me to sell, because I didn't have to fight with Yuri about buying 1.8 million, and because I can now say, oh, in 30 years down the road, you get supplemental retirement income, I just hose the client by giving them $350,000 of death benefit versus $1.8 million death benefit. Okay? That's why. Okay, so that's my, I'm not going to show you the rest of quantum wealth builder, but where everything's going to be this simple. That's the first step. That's the diamond. But we have it broken down for 2. So you know how much Bob needs and how much Jen needs in this case. Okay. Anybody like it? Okay.
Guys, that's
Now, Fuji was covering some great stuff. Now, was code section 7702. You have to make sure, as you're presenting all these concepts, including the fact that if it's set up properly, in almost all cases, the death benefit's going to be income tax free. How many times, if an asset's passed on to someone or we get money, is it income tax free? Very often?
No.
You gotta make sure you understand it's tax free money. You're leaving $1.8 million tax free to your beneficiaries. That's a good thing, right? So you sell that, and that's in code section 7702 of the Internal Revenue Code. It's in there. IRS lets us do this. We didn't make up the rules. The IRS, actually Congress drafted the rules a long time ago, and IRS now lets us do these things. So it's great. Same thing with what we're talking about as far as FIFO, taking the principal out first on the plan and then taking loans out, tax-free loans. It's in code section 7702. The IRS lets us do this. How many people want to take advantage of the tax code? All of us do, right? All of us. It's not just you, all the people out there do, don't they? So you have to understand that it's not you selling them something. All you're doing is being a top consultant, educating them, making them more financially literate, and teaching them how they can use the tax laws to their advantage. Right? How many people want to hear you say that? Everybody. Right? Everybody. Okay? That's all we're doing. What I'd like to do now is look at something. This will be part of our training. I know this is something Fuji covered. It'll be part of our financial literacy training. I've already developed it. I just have to make it look prettier now. But the third, decreasing responsibilities. I put here, Rocky, who was covering this? about dying, about not having enough money when you're young, not having enough retirement when you're old. One of you guys. So basically it'll look like this. Education, emergency, wealth accumulation, tax advantage. So how life works. At age 25, who talked about that? Dying too soon?
I didn't mention that.
One of you guys, okay? So at age 25, you're worried about dying too soon. Age 65, you're worried about living too long, right?
Right.
We are, and that's because when you're young in the early years, you're probably going to need a lot of coverage because you have debts and kids and not making enough money. But when you're older, you might not need as much coverage. Is that true?
Yeah.
And now, when you're young, you probably don't have much money saved yet. And when you're old, you better have it. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough retirement, right? So I just took, remember the old decreasing cost bill? I just brought it up to date and made it look a little prettier for us. Today, loss of income would be devastating because kids are young, high debt, and you have your own mortgage, right? At retirement, we need retirement income. Children are grown, lower debts, and the home is paid off, hopefully, right? So what does this then point to and allow us to talk to someone about? What is this one page? Life insurance. One page, life insurance. Why? Because here, we got to give them a lot of coverage. Could be term, could be IUL, because IUL can be cheaper. 25 would be cheaper than heck, right? To get a big death benefit, be cheaper than heck. And still give them a big death benefit to cover the family. If not, maybe they can't afford it, and then we get them a term, which they can afford. Or return a premium term, which you might be able to afford. But then as they get older, then we might not sell as much of that because we're not worrying about death benefit. As they get older, they probably want what? Cash accumulation, which was Sue was talking about. And what Rocky and Fuji were talking about, cash accumulation. So there's one page you can sell life insurance without selling life insurance, well, there's one page. And that'll be part of your financial literacy training. Any question? So I just wanted to harp on that one. Now I'm going to show you one page I like a lot. And this is actually called, I call it Rent Your Wealth. Anybody like to rent their wealth? You know they always say renting is cheaper? So maximum effect with minimum effort. Most people feel they do need to protect their family in case they die, right? At the same time, they like to minimize the cost. It costs too much or whatever it is, right? So if you have enough assets, your family could be self-insured. How many people in the United States have enough assets to say, I have enough money, my family's fine? Not many after the last 10 years. So we found most people don't have enough assets. So, or people who don't have enough assets, which is everybody, they need to protect their family. They need to look at life insurance as nothing but a substitute form of wealth. Okay? We call it, life insurance allows you to rent your wealth. Why is that? Because it costs you such a small fraction of the amount you're going to provide your family. Everyone understand that concept? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, this is the power of leverage, renting your wealth. This is the male age 45 standard $1 million family protection, and this will show a plan that if they pay $3,000, see the premium over here? $3,000. If they die this year, so you buy it for a family, 45, they need $1 million of coverage. Let's say that's what the dimer said. If they die that year, on that $3,000 you paid at the end of the year, it's equivalent of a 47,619% taxable return. Anybody like to earn a 47,000% rate of return on their money? Can they fight you now on why they should buy this policy? What if they do this for 10 years? So now, they do this $3,000 for 10 years. They paid in $3,000, they die in the 10th year, they get $1 million. It's still the equivalent of a 97% compounded annual equivalent taxable rate of return. Have they ever gotten a 97% compounded annual rate of return in anything they've done? What if they live for 30 years? So now they're 75, they paid in $90,000, right? 30 times 3,000. How much have they paid in over 30 years? Move it up. 90,000. If they die, they get $1 million. That's the equivalent of getting a 19% annual compounded equivalent tax rate of return on that $3,000. Is that a good rate of return?
Yeah.
Is that leveraging?
Yeah. Sure.
Can you explain that concept to people?
Yeah.
That would be part of our financial literacy. Okay. Just the concept. Is that life insurance, or is that how do you maximize the leverage of every single dollar you have? Okay. It's both, right? It's life insurance, but we're going to maximize and leverage the value of every dollar we have. So when someone says that life insurance costs too much, I'll say, how does it cost too much? Show me. How does it cost too much? Use that. Same thing then, there you go. I do a little summary. A 1 year, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 year plan that shows annual premium, see total cumulative premiums, death benefit, and then the taxable equivalent annual compounded rate of return. Have you seen it like that before? Make it simple?
Yeah.
You know, so people talk about rates of return and you shouldn't buy life insurance for rates of return. I don't know, as far as the death benefit protection, I think it's a cheapest form of us maximizing the value of our assets, hence renting our wealth. Can you pay $90,000 over 30 years into anything and have it be worth $1 million to our beneficiaries?
No.
Okay. Now, how about you look at people that are too old for insurance? A male is 71, a female is 70. Everyone says, oh, it's too old. They're too old, you can't get insurance. Yeah, you can. I do a second to die policy. Okay, in this case, I paid $15,000 a year, and they're older, 71 and 70, and I can get them approved to give them $1 million policy. So when the second person passes away, $1 million goes out. So what if they're 71 and 70, they both die that year, they pay $15,000, at the end of the year, $1 million gets paid to the beneficiary. That's a 9,571% annual equivalent tax rate return. Would they like to earn 95% on their money? How about if they live to their life expectancy, which would be about 87 and 86? They paid in about 17 years of 15,000. So what is that? 150? That's about 300. Let's say 300,000. Round it off. $300,000. If they died at their life expectancy, they got $1 million. That means they're going to get a 24% annual compounded equivalent taxable rate of return. You know what that means? You know what that means? How about if you have people that are going to live beyond the charts? Fine, there's someone that says they're going to live forever. Okay, you lived to 100 and she's 99. You paid in $15,000 for 30 years. You paid in $450,000. What if you were guaranteed that if you died when you're 100 and you're 99, which you're probably going to die a lot sooner than that, but what if that happened? Guaranteed you pay $450,000, we're going to give you a tax-free check for $1 million to your beneficiaries, which is the equivalent of a 30-year compounded equivalent 7% taxable rate of return. Will they like that? There's the summary. Can you sell that?
Yes.
It's easy. And these will be huge premiums for you to get to those people that have these assets or have that income, they're not spending it, and they can use that to leverage the wealth for their family. How many people want to leverage the wealth for their family, do you think? Most people. But what if we could do it at a very cheap price? What if now they want, what if they have $2 million of assets now, and they want to leave that to the family, and they won't spend it for their retirement? What if we could say, let's use that. Let's take out $60,000 a year, pay $15,000 in taxes, you have $45,000 left. Keep $15,000 paid for insurance, and you have $30,000 extra to spend. You can spend all your $2 million over the next 30 years, and we're still going to leave the money to your kids. Is that a good thing? Yeah. Right. You just solved all their problems because they won't use their money because they want to leave it to the kids. But we can fix that.
Again, if people have assets like these, and with Medicare and the income limits and all of that, is there a way this can be protected and not count?
Well, if you ever get into that kind of planning, you're going to probably get disciplinary action compliance. You cannot try to plan around it. You can have an attorney plan around it, but we can't. But there will be assets that will be protected, especially if it's set up in a trust, and depending on when those premiums were paid.
Right.
So you have to be careful on how you do it, but yeah, they can never be protected. All right, now I'm going to show you, give you a quick example for health insurance about just the different types of insurance. This is an example I ran for a 53-year-old gentleman who joined our company, and he wanted to know, okay, what kind of insurance do I buy? His upline, and literally it was him, upline, 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 upline. None of the four had ever been in insurance. The fifth finally had, but the fifth was so busy he couldn't even help this guy. So I said, okay, I'm going to do an analysis because I'm going to use it for training, but I'm also going to use it for you to decide what kind of insurance you want to buy yourself. Okay? So I ran a term plan. So in this case, it was $1 million coverage, and the traditional premium for him, just regular term, and this was a 20-year term, okay? 20-year term was $46.42. You see that for a year? So they pay him $4,600 the first year. If he dies, $1 million gets paid to the beneficiary. For 20 years, if he does it, he pays it about 90 grand. So it's paying 90 grand good over 20 years. If at any time during that time period he dies, they pay his beneficiaries $1 million. That's just leverage, right?
Yeah.
Just leverage. That's all it is. Okay. So I ran that one for him. He said, "Okay, I get that." And he said, "Well, what do you recommend?" I go, "I'm not recommending anything. I'm going to first give you the examples, and then you can tell me." And this guy said he had between 20 and 30,000 net, which he did on an annual basis that he could put into a plan. So I said, "Okay." The second one would be, "Are you okay paying these premiums and not getting your premiums back?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, term insurance, you know how it works. You pay your premium here, you have coverage for 20 years, and then when you get down to this 20th year here, in the 21st year, you no longer have coverage, right? The term's over, and nothing gets returned to you." I said, "You understand that's how term works?" He goes, "Yeah, that's how all term works." I go, "Not exactly." I go, "How would you like to hear about term that after the time period you pay your premiums, if you don't die, they give you all your money back. He's like, they don't do that. I go, yeah, they do. We have that. So you're kidding. So then I showed him this one. And I said, okay, now, if instead, same type of plan, you want to pay in $12,340, you get the same death benefit. You don't get any more death benefit. Same $1 million. But if you pay the $12,000 in, at the end of the 20-year time period, the term's over, but you get a return of premium 100%. You get a check for $246,800. You see, either one's fine with me because your family's protected at $1 million. Doesn't matter to me which one you buy as long as this policy is going to make you feel comfortable. So you have to decide, do you want to pay $4,600, not get any of that back, or do you want to pay $12,000 and get 100% of the back if you don't die? And I asked him, do you plan on dying over the next 20 years? I asked him that. It sounds a stupid question, right? Does that sound like a stupid question? Really? Then why? Do you plan on dying during the next 20 years? Do you want to die over the next 20 years? Would you rather buy a policy that will protect your family and you don't get anything back, meaning you're probably planning that something bad's going to happen, or would you rather look at the optimistic side, be positive and say, you're not going to die, you're going to get everything back? And I asked him that. I try to plant that seed. If that seed's not already planted, I'm going to plant the seed. Okay? And I tell him, I call this winning. I don't want to die over the next 20 years. I want to live, I want to protect my family, and I want to get every penny back. I want to get my $250,000 back, and I can use it for anything I want. How would that be at age 73 as an extra retirement bonus check? Oh, by the way, Juan, when you get that $246,000, it's income tax free. Can you say it just like I said it? Yes. If you can, you'll sell a lot of this. Okay? That's that. Now,
hey, that, is this just an illustration or just real numbers?
These are real numbers, baby.
These are real numbers? Are these premium client, like medical check? A guy at 53, 55, 70?
He was preferred but not preferred plus.
Okay.
Not preferred, but it doesn't matter because then if he's standard, the term insurance premiums are going to go up just like all the rest, so it's still going to be a ratio of everything. It won't matter. It'll still work the same.
So this guy was a preferred?
He was preferred, but in this case it really was closer to standard the way this insurance company.
When you go back to the 70-year-old that you showed, was that preferred or was that?
The 70, 71-year-old was one preferred, one standard.
One preferred, one standard.
Because when you have two people, it's even easier because insurance companies rate two people easier than they rate one person.
Okay.
And we'll go over more in-depth training on each of these individual products. I'm just trying to give you a feeling for how they, right now I just want you to get the feeling for how they work, okay? Not all the details will come later, we'll do training. This is the feeling, okay, of how these products work. Now, I did this to make sure he understood also. I'm doing an IUL target funding. And target funding is what a lot of us sell because that's what we get paid commission on. But I don't necessarily like target funding if it isn't the best plan for that. Sometimes I like to overfund. You don't get paid commission on typically the overfunding at the high rate, but I'll show you how beneficial it is. Now here's a target funding plan. Target funding means we get paid full commission on this. It was $26,000, $26,400. And in this case, I made it a retirement supplement, right? And instead of waiting until 70, he said he wants to retire. He wants to work for 15 years, then he wants to retire. Okay? So with IUL, you can you cater that kind of plan to someone, Rocky? That way? You can. And if you have 15 years, it's always good. Less than 15 years, it's always a little painful, a little hard to drag the numbers out. But if you have 15 years, we can make the plan look awesome. Okay? So in this case, we put in $26,400. He told me he had about $30,000. If I could give him a good enough plan, he'd do it. So I said, okay, put in $26,400. If he dies, he gets $1,041,000. Is that good leveraging that first year? If he does this over the next 15 years, it means he's going to pay in about almost $400,000. So if he pays in $400,000, even if he dies in that 15th year, is that a good deal if he gets $1 million to his beneficiaries? It's still good. But now if he wins, he doesn't die, what if at current illustrator rates, he could start pulling out $66,000 a year tax-free? And in this case, I was able to take it out all the way till he was 94.
Awesome.
Wow.
So what's his complete withdrawal?
I don't know, it's $66,000 till he's dead. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He's going to take all of his own money out in the first 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay? So again, you guys are going to be way too anal retentive for this, I already know. Just feel it. What does that feel like? Why are you trying to dissect it?
Yeah.
It means It means you're not believing me, you're not trusting me. Just feel it. Okay? Feel it. Now, that's a great plan, but what if he lives longer? So then I did another plan. I call this preferred funding. It's nothing other than what you have to calculate out, right, Rocky? So you find out what's target, how much more can you put in. So instead of 26,400, I said, what if we put in 28,800? Not that much more, right? $2,200 more. And with that, look what I was able to do then by manipulating how much money put in. I manipulated it. I manipulated the hell out of this one. So he put in 28,800. He stops paying 15 years later. Now he takes out almost $78,000 a year. And what's better, I like to be able to tell him it goes all the way out to 100.
Wow.
Just by that little extra. Again, don't worry about the numbers. How does that feel? Okay. First, if you don't feel it first, no amount of numbers is going to make you feel good about it. You have to get that feeling in your heart saying, I would like to do it for myself, and I'd like to do that for a lot of people that I know. Is that true, Rocky? That's what you got to have. You have to say, yes, I'd love to do it for myself, and I'd like to do this for a lot of people. Now, if you go here, let's go over here. I'm going to show the summary. So here's just a summary of the death benefit. So what I did for this guy, and what I'll do, I'm going to make this, just being up, I'm going to make this part of the training manual, make this part of the Superstart, so we actually have, because in the training manual, section 1 is about doing your internal consumption, doing a dimer, doing an internal consumption, doing a health quote, doing your health if you can. Then it goes through, it has the dimer in the first section. That's the first section of the entire training. For your first 100 days, that's the first thing we go through, nothing else. And then it explains the dimer, then it explains the different types of life insurance. It explains in words what term is, what IUL is, all those things. And then we'll also put some examples of how it works like this in there, okay? Basic. I'm not getting into detail. For the first 100 days, you don't need to have all the details. You got to follow your leader. But we're going to give enough information at the beginning to and allow them to act, right? So they move forward. So this just shows then how the death benefit would be from the traditional term, ROP, IUL, and IUL. And in this case, you can see, look what happens. The IULs are going to start going down. Why do they go down? What's the net death benefit? So we're taking money out. But look what happens as time goes on. If you keep the plan, death benefit keeps going back up. And over here I showed that really on that side we're not taking income out during the pink side because remember income stopped at age 94 with the target thing. Okay, so just gives us an idea of how the death benefit would work. And then I did an example here of what would happen to the premium and the income. Okay, so you see, that's a little bit too much. Just a little more. 50, a little more. So you see the term premium here, right? 4642. If you die, we know there's $1 million of death benefit goes, right? But what happens after here? Nothing, right? Return of premium term 12340. If you die, $1 million, but look what happens if you live, you get $246,000 back. How many people do you think will opt for that? A lot, if you show it to them. And guess what? The person said, I don't have enough money, guess what they're going to do? I don't want to pay $4,000, I want to pay $12,000.
Yeah.
They'll find it. I don't know where they had the money hidden, but they had it hidden somewhere. Right? Because then it's good for them. They don't think you're selling them something. Because you're giving them, what I say is, how would you like to buy insurance? And then in 20 years it costs you nothing net. If you don't die, I will give you 100% of every penny you paid it back. Did that just knock down the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, knock down the wall. Doesn't think you're selling them anything anymore. I think you're giving them something. Okay. Another thing you have to be able to tell them is, this seems like such a new concept, isn't it? Because you haven't heard about one, right? And say, yeah. Say, you're right. It's so new. It's only been around for about 30 years. I sold my first one of these about 30 years ago. They've been around that long. It's just agents don't like to tell the clients about them because it's harder to sell. You got to explain more. Even though it's for the client's best interest, they think it's harder to sell them because the premium's higher. So they won't sell it to Janet because they're like, oh, Janet won't pay that much money. Well, guess what? She will. She knows she's getting every penny back. Because guess what? We're all greedy with our own funds. I don't mind spending money knowing that if I don't, I get all my money back. Do you? It's a whole different concept. It's a whole different way to sell life insurance, okay? And then we just outlined again, with IULs, you're paying for 15 years because his plan was to start taking money out at 68. We can take out 66,000 on current illustrated value, 77,000, 78,000, and goes like this. So you have just a feel for how the plans work. Just a feel. That's a whole goal, you get that feel. Okay, any questions on what I covered real quick? Anything else, Roger, we covered on life before I go into health real quick? Any other questions there?
So on the return of premium, there's an age cap there, right?
Yes, and I don't know what that is. Each
55,
company is
right?
different, but I think we actually had it till, was it 65? It was either 60 or 65 on a couple of companies.
I think, yeah, I
55.
think there's only 2 companies that are allowed to go over the 55 mark. And
Okay.
then-
Which ones? ING, Assurity, or American General?
Not American General for sure. ING, I think, is maybe Prudential or one of
Okay,
those.
so I think we can at least go to 60. I thought one with lower death benefit was 65, but we have to check those. Any other questions on what we covered? You have to, the whole goal is to get you to feel life insurance inside, because if you don't feel it, you're not going to sell it.
Right.
You either have to decide you feel it, you know it, you love it, you think it's the right thing for people, otherwise you're not going to sell one policy. And if you sell a policy, guess what kind of policy it's going to be? The wrong type. Okay? Once you sell the right type, and you're going to make a lot of money if you sell the right type. You'll get more referrals, they'll understand it, they'll see your passion, they'll see you know what you're talking about, and it really doesn't take that much to do what I did today. It doesn't take that much knowledge. You just got to focus on what's important and don't be distracted by what's not important. Okay? Well, it comes down to the why, and that's why I harp on it. Okay, and I'm going to ask you if you love your family because I know you do, but I'm going to slap you and tell you you're not acting like you do. If I don't think you love your family, I'm not even asking about you. So if I look in your eyes, know you care about your family, you just haven't been educated yet, and you're challenging me because you're the man of the house, that's okay. Then we'll do a little battle, we'll be fine, we'll be friends, and we'll have beer.
How often do you follow up with people, let's say you're working with a family and they can afford, let's say sell them a policy of what they need, but things change, like yearly, every 6 months, monthly, do you have to constantly?
That's going to be a multiple answer
Yeah.
question, because first is if they're part of your team, you have to look at that. With how the company's been built in the past, 20% of all sales that we make would be statistically from internal consumption. 50% will be from field training, which both those 70% of all the sales means those people probably were or are going to be affiliated with our company in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Right, Rocky? That's how it comes up. Is that what the numbers are? 20 and 50, right? 30% outside sales, made just to the general public. Okay, and that's okay. But in reality, for insurance, most people in the insurance business will say you should at least do an annual review. But the more you're in front of them, the better it's going to be, because we're just not going to sell them life insurance. We're going to hopefully try to get them their health insurance. We're going to hopefully help them get them the property and cash. We're going to look at their IRAs for index CDs. We're going to look at their annuities. We're going to look at their land banking. We're going to look at all these things. So the more you're in front of them, the more you educate them, the more likely they're going to be to turn to you for anything that happens, and the more likely they're going to refer people to you, the more likely you're going to get them into our business.
Right, true.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
What if it's the wife who refuses to let the husband spend the money?
Okay, say that again.
You're in the backyard.
What if it's the wife who refuses to let the husband spend the money for proper property?
Then the first thing I say, you must have a young, rich second husband on the way. Just kidding, I wouldn't say that. That was really if the wife refuses it, then I found there could be a couple reasons. One could be literally, I found that there's trouble in the marriage, and the wife might be thinking that it's not going to last long. I've had that happen a high percentage of the time when the wife has fought. Because how many wives are going to fight their husband getting more insurance on themselves? It has never happened in the entire history of the United States and the entire history of the world. Unless there's a problem.
Then it's Prudential, 15 years.
Prudential. So the issue would be now there's probably an issue with the marriage. And this happened multiple times where you were married and the wife said, oh, we don't need to spend $500 a month. And when that happens, red flags in my mind go up, boop, 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 there's a problem with the marriage. Okay. There just is. So then you have to be tactful and ask and find out, okay, I'd ask at this point, okay, so what would happen then, Tammy, if you already passed away and we didn't have this $2 million policy? And there's only $100,000 right now, what would happen? And then we get into it, and sometimes they'll tell me the truth, sometimes they won't. You have to ask a question. And then at that point, you go back to Uri and say, Uri, do you feel like your family could survive if we didn't have this $2 million policy? What if you didn't have this policy? There's a $100,000 current plan that has been updated. Not your fault, Uri. The agent should have came back to you, and you've had this policy for 20 years. So I'm glad we get to get in front of you to fix this, because 20 years ago that might have been enough, but right now it's not. Do you feel like your family could survive on anything less than this if you passed away? And then at that point, I don't listen to her as much, then I'd go to him because she's making a bad decision. Because even if they get divorced, we might need that insurance on him because if they have 3 or 4 little kids, I want the money still to go to her so she can take care of the kids. Right? We still want that. So you have to you have to tiptoe around that one. And typically the only reason is because there's a problem in the household with that, psychologically.
Maybe she don't understand.
Well, and then you go back to it, and I go back to the dimer, and I say, okay, and that's why sometimes it'll come out. I say, okay, let's say Janet. And I say, Janet, you have $35,000 of consumer debt, right? How would we pay that off right now if you're passed away? Do you have $35,000 in the bank? She goes, yeah, that's all we have. I said, well, would you use all that to pay off your credit card? Heck no, we need to have money in emergency funds. Then I said, Yuri makes $50,000 a year. We need at least 20 years of that between now and the time you're going to retire. That'd be $1 million. Could you survive right now if Yuri passed away without that money? And you got to get her to say no. You got to get her to go through so she doesn't have an excuse. And so I just basically go back over what they told me. That's why, do you know why you get a fact finder? You know the real reason why you get a fact finder? Get information from the client? So you can use it against them when they start making these stupid objections. You're supposed to laugh, but it's true. Did you know that? That's why you get a fact finder? If he tells me information and I use that to sell him, am I selling him that or am I really just helping him get what he told me he wanted?
Right.
That's why you get a fact finder. That's why you get information from the client. Otherwise we'd say, okay, buy $1 million, we don't need any information. No. I want to know all these little bits and pieces so I can say, okay, now we need to make sure he has that. Now you have a $350,000 mortgage. She's saying she doesn't want insurance. I say, how are you going to pay that off if Yuri dies? Are you going to be able to make these monthly payments by yourself? With your own income? No. Well, then what would you do? And let her answer. She might fumble because she's thinking about some other guy and all that, but that's okay. No, it's true. So you got to make her say, I couldn't do that on my own. Then you go to education. Yuri dies today. How are you going to put the kids through school? Okay. So you bring it right back to them, and then you hopefully get them to answer. Any other questions?
If there is a divorce and they have 2 policies, you're writing 2 policies, one on each, right, husband and wife? Do they get split up as assets, or does each remain with the person?
Well, that's so far ahead that that's okay, but at that point, then that's part of, the reason I set it up that way also is, that's part of the divorce negotiations, because ultimately, if Yuri and Janet are married, and now they both have their policies, at that point, then we decide, okay, if the divorce decree says we're going to keep both these policies, and you're responsible to make payments on yours, you're responsible, that's great, but sometimes I switch and I say, okay, we're going to keep the policies, Janet, you got to make the premium payments on his. So that way it's up to you to make sure it stays in force, and Yuri, if you want to keep the death benefit on Janet, you got to keep making the policy so that you can't blame the other people. And then we keep the policies in force, right? So you do make that part of the divorce decree. So if you stop making it, that's your fault, that's not his fault. If he stops making the payments, it's his fault, not your fault. There's so many things you can do to save with so much money and time and energy, it's easy. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Where we can find out the form to calculate the premium?
When you find out how to calculate all the premiums,
Yeah.
you call ORG and they run them for you. Or you work with your upline and you can get your own software. So if you get appointed with the companies, you can get logged in and get any company software. Yeah, you can do all those calculations. You can get software for about 20 different companies if you want to, or you can have ORG, they'll run the different books for you. Okay? Very simple. They actually have a quick, well, one of the things we're putting in the Superstar manual will be, there's a 1-page quick illustration form that you can either email in or fax in to ORG, and they'll run illustrations for you. That's part of the new Superstar manual. Any other questions before I go to medical?
You mentioned that you got too soon,
Live too long.
live too long, but if you get hit along the way, does that have a way premium?
Well, a lot of them can have waiver premium, definitely, yeah. It just depends if you want it. Some of them are free, some of them cost a little bit of money. But the thing would be also is if someone has a health issue along the way, probably the one thing they should always pay no matter what is their life insurance. And if they're really afraid about it, then we get waiver premium. Okay, so I'm gonna take a couple seconds and just ask some questions right now. So based on life insurance, from all the information you've gotten so far, who's going to, how many people have done their internal consumption? Let's see their hands. How many people have done? How many people are going to do their internal consumption? Okay, so take a picture and then just make sure that people didn't raise their hand. Because they filter themselves out. It's that simple. And it's hardcore, but it's not. That's how it is. If you're not doing it, you filter yourself out. It's that simple. How many people are gonna do 5 field training sales with their upline? Take a picture, those people are in, they'll let us out. Yeah, it's funny, but it's that simple. That's our new company culture. You do it, you fill it in, you don't do it, you fill it out. It's that simple. Because if you don't do it, you're not going to be successful here. You have no chance. You have a 0% chance of being successful. If you do not do internal consumption, and Shirley's talking again as usual, you have a 0% chance of success if you do not do your internal consumption and your 5 field training sales. I'm telling you right now. You are wasting your time here, you're wasting your energy, and you're wasting the time and energy and opportunity of anybody you bring on. Okay? It's that simple. All right, what was that now?
I said, raise your hands, it's being recorded.
Okay, now, I'm gonna cover what we have set up. You need to cover health insurance real quick, want to take it long?
Yeah.
Okay. How do I say this?